Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. These are your DC Comics for the week of April 19th, 2022. Pretty solid week. Some really great books. Some stuff that's maybe not the best, but yeah, overall, I think it was a pretty good week. What did you think, Rock?
Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was decent. It was probably half and half. It was, you know, uh, yeah, it was half and half. There's so many. Like it's kind of hard for me to process. I don't really rate it all. I'm gonna be bitching about some of them, but for the most part, it was all right.
Yeah, I feel like definitely more bad than good. So anyway, there's a lot of rumors swirling around DC Comics right now with the merger got finalized or acquisition, whatever word you want to use. Keep in mind, AT&T still has they own the majority of the stock for Warner Brothers, which obviously includes DC Comics, but they have sold what's called a controlling interest, even though usually a controlling interest means you own the majority of the company, and so that means you get to call the shots. Even though AT&T owns the majority of the stock, they're still the majority stakeholder. They are allowing Discovery to call the shots. AT&T realizes, hey, we're not a media company. We don't know what we're doing when it comes to media. Maybe be better off letting Discovery call the shots. So the merger was finalized last week, and now there's all these rumors swirling because the first thing Discovery says is, well, we need to trim the fat. I don't think, and I can't say for sure, but I don't think that would involve any more cost cutting or any more layoffs at DC. They are already bare bones. But, and again, I'm not privy to inside information when it comes to this, but I would be shocked if there weren't some redundant positions at Warner Brothers in terms of executives and middle managers, because if you're familiar with any U.S. corporation or any worldwide corporation for that matter, there are always redundant middle manager positions, people who make a lot of decisions and like to throw their weight around to sort of justify the reason that their job even exists, when a lot of times it maybe doesn't necessarily need to. So everything is still up in the air. We don't know anything at this point. Everything is rumor and innuendo. And if it's like any other corporation or rumor mill that I've ever been a part of when it comes to that sort of thing in the business world, it's the reason there are all these rumors and conflicting information is because nobody knows what's really going to happen, because even the people that make the decisions probably haven't made the decisions. There's all these different, oh, well, we could do this, or we could do this, or we could do this, and people hear one of those choices and they take it as fact and spread it around when no decisions probably have actually been made. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the first book that we're going to talk about this week. It's Batman, Superman, World's Finest, #2. This is the Mark Waid written book starring Batman and Superman. Dan Mora handles the art, Tamara Bonvillain on colors, Aditya Bidikar on letters. There's a couple of pretty cool looking variant covers. Tim Sale and Dave Stewart do one. Pete Woods does one. Jorge Jimenez and Alejandro Sanchez do another. So I really enjoyed the first issue of this. Second issue, while still good, I didn't enjoy as much. And the reason for that is it sort of feels like, and I don't know if this stems from the idea that Mark Waid has been wanting to write Superman at DC Comics for so long. And even this is not Superman. Like, he's writing the character, right? But I mean, I think Mark Waid wants to write Action Comics. He wants to write the Superman title. And I say give it to him. I'm 100% on board with that. But this is what he has for now, because obviously there are other plans going on with those other books. That being said, I don't know if the reason that this is so fast paced is because he is so anxious to get his stories, his Superman stories or whatnot out there. The fact that this guest stars Doom Patrol, I think, is pretty cool. How they get the red kryptonite out of that's infecting Superman's body is also done really, really well. But again, it feels like we're moving so fast that we don't get a lot of good character moments or moments to just kind of let the story sink in. It's all action, it's all plot driven, and it's going really really fast, which to me that's not a it doesn't feel like a Mark Waid book, because usually Mark Waid takes his time and you do get those great character moments and you do get callbacks to things that have happened in the past and whatnot. um, so it's a little strange for me because I'm not feeling that. But visually, in terms of the storytelling, I think Dan Morris should get a lot of credit for giving us a really cohesive visual narrative for this plot that is moving so fast. He's getting us everything that's in there and that needs to be is coming across in the narrative. And I think based on the fact that it is moving so fast, the worry, at least for me, would be that the transitions from panel to panel come across a little choppy because it is moving so fast, and that's not the case. So again, I'll give Dan Moore a lot of credit for the visual storytelling, and the line work, and the colors by Tamara Bonvillain. Like all of that is done very very well. Visually, it's a beautiful book, and I don't want to come across as saying I'm not enjoying it, um, but I think I would enjoy it even more. Like maybe I give it a 7 out of 10, but maybe it'd be an 8 or a 9 out of 10 if the pacing was just dialed down just a little bit. But again, maybe Mark Waid has a reason for going so quickly. Um, but yeah, it feels like there's a lot stuffed in here, and it is more than 20 pages. I think it's like a 24, 25 page book. Um, so yeah, I'm still along for the ride. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I guess we'll have to wait and see where it goes from here if the story starts slowing down and we get a few more little character moments. But it's just weird to read a Mark Waid book where we're not having a ton of callbacks to previous DC history. But anyway, what do you think, Rocky? You agree? Disagree? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a little bit more favorable than you are. I thought there was some. I enjoyed the character moments. Uh, I guess perhaps the reality is that we all, whenever Superman and Batman are written, we always get a lot of character moments with them, but by a lot of different writers. So maybe there are character moments here, but maybe they just don't. Maybe they don't resonate as much because we've kind of seen this song and dance before a little bit. It's just now we're seeing it from Mark Waid. I'm a Mark Waid fan. I think he's forgotten more about Superman than most of us will ever know or remember. I like the character moments here. This is a Batman who cares about Superman. You could Dan Mora did a great job illustrating Batman's concern when Superman's on the table and his body is poisoned by red kryptonite, and of course the chief there of the Doom Patrol, being very worried that they can't save Superman, and you could see the look of concern on their face. I thought there was good dialogue between Robin and the what's the woman there on the Doom Patrol. What's her name? Um,
Elastigirl?
what's that?
Elastigirl?
Or Elastigirl, yeah. Jeez. It's been a while since I read Doom Patrol. Anyways, yeah. So I like the Doom Patrol. Obviously, I should probably go back and rewatch some of the CW to refresh my memory because it's been a long time since I read a Doom Patrol comic book. But I like the new villain here, this Devil Nizha or Devil Nizha. Uh, he's got an interesting origin. His father, he was a son who had died, and the father was very rich back in ancient times, and his father gave up everything to resurrect his son, only to have his son finally be resurrected. And was so disappointed in his father because his father gave up everything for him. And why did you give up everything to bring me back? If you have nothing, then we have nothing. And out of anger, he kills his own father, and he builds up his own empire, and ultimately he's eventually defeated, and he eventually he's defeated, but he's been brought back, and this is the enemy that they have to fight. There's time travel here. Mark Waid does a little bit of everything. There's character moments here between Supergirl and Robin, Dick Grayson, that I thought were pretty good. There was you could tell that I like that Mark Waid writes this story as if he really understands these characters, and even we know something went on between Supergirl and Robin in the past, and they only allude to it, but it feels natural. It feels like they're having a conversation, as if it's really this is an easy read. Mark Waid is just a master of dialogue here. There's a reason why so many people, notwithstanding the fact that he might be a divisive figure in terms of social media, the fact is a lot of writers and creators look to Mark Waid. He's taught and he's helped out a lot of creators, and he knows his craft. And Mark Waid just, I think we take it for granted. And for those of you who read this comic and read a lot of comics by new writers, and you can definitely see a difference. I'm thoroughly entertained by this. I like how I like the plotting. Dan Mora on the art. I enjoyed the trans. I thought he did a masterful job. I love the battle sequences, the Superman and Batman, the way they that they defeated. I mean, or Doctor Faust. I think that's his name, or Felix Faust. The way they defeated him, I thought was quite ingenious. There was yeah, it was just very cleverly written, well done. Mark Waid plays fast and loose with the time travel here, but I like that he assumes a lot of things. This reminds me a lot of the pre-crisis Superman and Supergirl in terms of their power set, and he does whatever he wants to make the story work, and I enjoyed it. So. I had fun with it, and I think anyone reading this, you don't need any background to these characters. It's all explained here, but if you do, it just adds some bonus time to it. So it gets a recommend for me.
Yeah, I think I would probably recommend it as well. Again, it might be something that reads a little better, all collected. Because yeah, and maybe you're right. Maybe those moments that he would consider character moments, or you might consider character moments, with Batman showing his concern for Superman or whatever. Yeah, maybe it's just I've been reading DC so long that it didn't that those didn't resonate as character moments for me. Really, for me, the only character moments in the book are those moments between Robin and Supergirl that you mentioned. That's really the only
Yeah.
what I would consider character moments. The rest is all pushing the narrative forward, which as I said, seems to be moving really quickly. But anyway, let's move on. We have the final issue of Blue and Gold. This is issue number 8. It's from Dan Jurgens as a writer. Ryan Suk handles the main cover and the pencils and the colors. We have Wade Von Grobiger on inks and Rob Lee on letters. How did this wrap up for you?
Uh, I thought it wrapped up rather well. I did have some notes here. I just fortunately I didn't put them in order. So let me grab them here. Um, yeah. I found that this was a nice wrap up. I like the. I can tell. I really like the cover. One of the things I'm gonna miss when with this series over, Dan Jurgens' writing. I like his humor, and I like that he just takes certain liberties here, and I love the way that this series from the very beginning constantly broke the fourth wall. And this was Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. They lost everything. Blue Beetle lost his fortune. They have no funding, and the ending of this was nice. It's a little bit kind of a convenient ending. They ended up getting funding at an end. They ended up getting funding for their agency through a source, which is perhaps kind of predictable, uh, but it works. The villain here, the Black Beetle, is is an has an origin that is, I think, interesting. Black Beetle. It is revealed that he is in fact Michael Carter from another part of the universe. Specifically, he makes reference to the crime syndicate, Ultraman and Superwoman and Owlman. So he would appear to be, I think, the Booster Gold, or pardon me, the Blue Beetle, but of Earth 3, except he's the Black Beetle. So I'm assuming that he's from the future of an Earth 3. At least that's the inference that I got. I don't know about you, but I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea of a well, I guess of an evil Black Beetle. Now he's Michael Carter, but he's Black Beetle, so he's kind of a odd, eclectic combination of Booster Gold and Blue Beetle on Earth 3. So it's kind of a little bit weird that way, but it's fun. And again, his motives for taking out for wanting to defeat Booster and Beetle is because he doesn't like the choices that they made, and they have all this fame and they're not utilizing it, and they're actually using it to help people. And they draw inspiration from the Justice League, which Black Beetle thinks is nonsense. You should draw inspiration from somebody different, like, let's say, the Crime Syndicate. So I don't know. Again, it's fun. It's a fun read. Uh, there's maybe a little less humor in this one than in the past, but I enjoyed it. Buggles, we have Skeets, who is the little flying electronic doohickey of Booster Gold, and then we had got, I guess, Bugles or Buggles, whatever you want to call them, Buggles who becomes infected by a virus from the Black Beetle, ends up sort of corrupting things, and they end up going back to the age of the dinosaurs and defeating Black Beetle back then, in the past. And this is exactly what you would expect from a Blue and Gold adventure, and they make it back. There's a lot of good humor. The art by Ryan Suk is just fantastic. He's really good. I mean, all the different settings that this has taken place in, from issue 1 to now, we've been on various places on Earth, we've been on various places in the galaxy, we've time traveled, we've been everywhere. No matter what setting it is, Ryan Suk just draws it spectacularly. And of course, the social media, as conveyed through um, Skeets and Buggles, is conveyed, and there's always a little bit of a sort of an observation and breaking of the fourth wall, so to speak, as the rest of the social media observes Booster Gold and Blue Beetle have their misadventures. And uh, this is a nice reprieve. It's sort of it's fun. It's just plain fun. It's an enjoyable read, and it ends somewhat predictably. Blue and Gold, now they got Blue and Gold. I guess I don't know if it's a detective agency or what it is, but they will help you, and they got their own funding, and it ends on a high note. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about Booster Gold's potential, his relationship, because there was a hint that a certain time master or time traveler or Rip Hunter was his son. I wish I would have got some little bit more information about that, but I'm sure that's going to be coming out. Who knows? Maybe even going into Dark Crisis. But I enjoyed this. Again, if fans of Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, man, this is sort of a must pick up. And for 8 issues, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. It was a lot of fun. I do find the structure a little strange because it does feel like the last 2 issues after the alien storyline got finished off, and then this storyline, I don't want to say that it feels truncated because it certainly wraps up in a satisfying way, but this storyline could have been expanded on, and it makes me go back and wonder if this wasn't planned on being an ongoing, right? Just the way that it's structured, it certainly seems like those first 6 issues are its own thing, and then a second story arc with them fighting against this Black Beetle character. So it's almost like we got the first issue, little hints of the Black Beetle storyline in the end of issue 6, and then set up for the Black Beetle in the last issue, issue 7, and now here's like the end of the Black Beetle story that would have been in an issue 12 moved up to an issue 8. Because it's like a two-part story. Now, don't get me wrong, Dan Jurgens was around before comics were written for the trade, and everything was 4, 5, 6 issues. So he does a fantastic job. It wraps up in a satisfying way. But again, I just can't help but wonder if this series wasn't planned originally for 8 issues and was planned to be an ongoing. And I kind of wish it was, because it is, like Rocky said, just a lot of fun and interesting ideas. And, Booster Gold is a Dan Jurgens creation. And in my mind, he's still the one who writes Michael Carter with the best voice. And playing off the really fun and funny relationship that Booster and Blue Beetle have, obviously established in the Bwahaha era of the Justice League from DeMatteis, Giffen, and McGuire. That's portrayed very, very well here. Yeah, is the ending a little convenient with the funding coming from Bruce Wayne before he lost his fortune? Yeah, it 100% is. But again, I think it probably wouldn't have been done that way if it wasn't for the fact that Dan Jurgens is like, well, turns out I'm only getting 8 issues, and I kind of want to, wrap this up in a satisfying way. So I certainly don't blame him. It wasn't like he took the easy way out. I'm convinced that this was probably planned for more than 8 issues, whether ongoing or 12 issues or what have you, and then things got moved around. So at the end of the day, it's still a lot of fun. The art by Ryan Suk. I don't think Ryan Suk gets enough credit for his visual storytelling. I think a lot of people know him as a fantastic cover artist, and he certainly is that. I remember being at a convention. I think it was in San Jose, California, um, and Ryan Suk, he works all digitally, but he he will figure out his concepts on like this really lightweight paper, almost like tracing paper or typing paper. He'll sketch out just real quickly with pencil his concept art for what he's going to do for a cover before he actually goes to his Cintiq or iPad or whatever it is he draws on digitally. And I remember him having a stack of these for designing the covers that eventually became the covers for the weekly Future's End um,
Yeah.
series that came out, and they were just sitting there, and they were like $25 each, and nobody was even like looking at them. And he also had in there like character design sheets, because if anybody read that series, and I think maybe only three of us did, but there were designs in there for the new Superman that was wearing a motorcycle helmet and was actually Shazam, the new Firestorm and what have you. There were these character design sheets. Again, this is original art from Ryan Suk, and they were like $25. I bought like four of them, and I got them framed and they're hanging up on my wall. And it's like this is basically the only version of this cover that exists in terms of original art. Is it the exact cover? No, but it's the closest you're going to get to it. And I couldn't believe that people were not even um, they weren't going through this original art at his table. It was insane to me. So anyway, he's a fantastic storyteller in terms of the emotion that he puts in and the story beats that he chooses and the impact of what we get in his art from panel to panel. So I'm a huge Ryan Suk fan, and I know some people. I've heard some people specifically talking about this Booster Gold Blue Beetle series where they're like, "Well, his panel work, his interior work, it's not as refined as his cover work." It's because it's a different purpose. It's a completely different purpose. A single static image on a cover is marketing, right? It's supposed to pull you in. It's supposed to make you pick up the book. When you're talking about doing interior panels, it's supposed to tell a story. It is a completely different muscle in a way for the way things are laid out. Not every page needs to be a splash page, and not every panel should be worthy of being a cover because again, it's storytelling. It's sequential. That's the whole point of it. So I'm a huge fan of his work, and the fact that he colors himself here, the colors are very bright, which I always say helps give that classic superhero feel. So yeah, I think Rocky and I both really recommend this series, especially if you're a fan of Booster and Blue Beetle from the Justice League run. You'll really enjoy this. So all right, well, let's move on. We have part 4 of The Knight, which is the Batman book written by Chip Zdarsky. The art is by Carmine Di Giandomenico. Colors are by Ivan Placencia, lettered by Pat Barroso. This is the story that tells, of Bruce Wayne traveling around the world, being trained by all these different people. And it's sort of interesting, the pacing, the story structure that the series is taking on. I sort of talked about it early on, how I sort of feel like this could be an ongoing, and the fact that they're limiting it to 12 issues felt sort of strange. And I don't know if Zdarsky's like framing it in 4-issue arcs or 3-issue arcs or how exactly. There's only 10 issues. I think it said 12. It's actually only 10. Because we sort of got one story already of Bruce in Paris learning from this cat burglar and trying to figure out that stuff. And now with this issue 4, we've shifted to him on this mountaintop, this monastery, learning different fighting styles from supposedly the best fighter on the planet. Someone who's taken a bunch of different fighting styles and merged them into his own unique way. Um, and what we learned in the story is actually he's training a bunch of the members of the League of Shadows as well. And that's where Bruce draws the line and ends up leaving because he's teaching them the dim mock or the death touch, the way you can vibrate your hand and kill with a single blow. Obviously, Bruce is very much against killing, and so it causes some friction. He also befriends another student there. I don't know if this is pulling in the retcon that James Tynion created with Ghostmaker being part of Bruce's training. At first, I thought that was the case, and then as the story went on, I thought, nah, maybe this is a new character. I don't know how many people you can throw into Bruce Wayne's origin that know that he was training to become Batman before it's like, how does the entire world not know Bruce Wayne is Batman? So, in terms of the story itself, is this an enjoyable story? Yes, it's an enjoyable story. In terms of the logistics, the way it all fits, and the number of issues, and should it have been more and should it have been less, I don't want that to take away from what Zdarsky and Dijon Domenico are doing here in terms of impact, because I am really, really enjoying this. But again, I go back to I think this just needs to be its own thing. And I'm not saying it needs to go on forever, but I sort of wish DC had just said, you know what, Zdarsky, tell your story and take as many issues as you think it's going to take. We're not going to say this is an on, not going to limit it to say, hey, this is only 10 issues or this is only 12 issues, because again, it just feels like maybe we're skipping over some things. And there's even some reference here that Bruce talks about in the story about, yeah, Henri Ducard taught me how to do this and taught me how to do that. And that's how I was able to find this monastery. That's how I was able to get here. I want to see that stuff too. I want to see Bruce learn how to be a detective, how to track people. What is Henri Ducard teaching him? I think those are important uh, building blocks for Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of seed for a lot of great stories there, especially if you look at the relationship between Ducard and Bruce Wayne that we got just recently in the detective series from Tom Taylor. It shows that their relationship is one that's very complicated. So I'd love to see more of that. So I don't like the idea that we're skipping over. I mean, this was marketed, and please correct me, Rocky, if you feel differently. This was marketed by DC as, hey, we're going to finally see those lost years, Bruce Wayne training to become Batman, and now it feels truncated, and I don't like that. Um, so,
Yeah.
as far as the art goes, I'm not always a big fan of Dijon Domenico's style. It's a very kinetic style, but it also can be a little looser than I prefer at times. But the man does have a very good sense of storytelling. He has a very good sense of scope and scale. And he does convey that really well based on the setting, this monastery up in these snowy mountains and whatnot. So great art, great visuals. Um, so overall, I am enjoying it. But yeah, I mean, my nitpick on it is that I kind of want more of it. Like, don't skip anything. If it needs to be 40 issues, make it 40 issues. Just don't skip anything. I think Zdarsky is talented enough to make this the definitive story of what Bruce did in those years. Now, I understand from an editorial standpoint, maybe they don't want that because then that if you make a definitive, hey, this is what happened, day by day almost, and obviously you're not going to go day by day and you're not going to put in timestamps or whatever. But I understand that it would limit other creators from coming in later on and adding to, oh, by the way, I had this great story for Bruce when he was, during training to become Batman. And all of a sudden, well, then you have readers going, well, where does this fit? Because we got the 40 issue Zdarsky run and this didn't happen in that. So I understand it from a practical standpoint, but I also think, well, that's what Black Label is for, and you can tell, a different story out of continuity or whatnot. I just want a good story, and when things are skipped over, it just bugs me. I don't know. Anyway, what'd you think?
Uh, this was one of my this is one of my favorite issues because I enjoyed it enough that I'm really curious as to who this Anton is. I mean, Bruce Wayne, he goes to meet this Kirigi in this mountaintop somewhere located between North Korea and China. So he spends a lot of time trying to find this. I found it interesting that it was actually a Henri Descartes, as you mentioned, that gave him a list of a bunch of people that are the best in the world at what they do. So, what better person to get some information from than Henri Descartes? Because Henri Descartes had his own list of people that were the best of the best. Because that's how Henri Descartes, as a high tech, I guess, private detective, Henri Descartes, he he benefits, and that's why Ducard is so good, because he knows how important it is to work with the best people, and he sort of gives some of that wisdom to Bruce Wayne, saying, to be the best, you've got to be trained by the best, and that's why Bruce Wayne is there. I like the fact that Master Kirigi is flawed. He works, and he'll even train people to use lethal force, because he wants to have students so badly that he'll even teach them to do bad things and teach them how to use deadly techniques, as long as he can stay in business and still continue to have still continue to be a teacher and a master, and have and train students under him. And it's interesting that we don't know. There's the group of bad students that ultimately showed up there. I'm not sure if they're from the Legal Shadows or not. I'm not sure if that was mentioned or not. You mentioned that, Jace, but I'm. It's not clear to me if it's who sent them. Who is the benefactor? Who is Master Karigi's benefactor? Is it Ra's al Ghul? That seems to be an obvious guess. It's interesting. I'm guessing it's Ra's al Ghul, and those students were probably from the Legal Shadows, so there's some early hints there. I found it interesting that at the end it's revealed that it was actually Anton. Anton is the one that went and told those League of Shadow members, told those other students that Bruce Wayne had left, that Jack had left. Remember that Bruce Wayne has not been truthful to Anton about his real name. And it's fair to conclude that Anton did not tell Bruce his real name. So you're right, it might be Ghostmaker. My guess is, could it be David Kane, Cassandra Cain's father? Because he kind of has the grayness above the ears. That's my own theory, but it could be wrong. I love the fact that I'm speculating. I love the fact that Chip Zdarsky's not spelling this all out. Because those of us who know a lot about Batman history, or who arrogantly think we do, we can speculate like we're speculating now. And I kind of like that. I like when the writer sort of lets, when a writer doesn't give everything away. We don't need to be spoon-fed every detail. Chip Zdarsky leaves enough on the table here that we can kind of read into whatever we like to this. I like that this is Bruce Wayne learning how to fight, learning the benefits of learning to fight with somebody, learning to maybe open himself up to friendship, like he does with Anton here. And Anton might, who ends up leaving with him, or ultimately, even though they're separated, at some point they're going to meet again. And it's going to be interesting, who is this Anton? And so this is a future story in the making in all likelihood, unless it is Ghostmaker, who knows? But I love the seeds that were planted here. Digian Demonico, great art. I love this. It's very kinetic, and it's perfect for the type of martial arts that we're seeing. I thought the fight scenes were really good. I thought it played out very well, especially when Anton and Jack, Bruce and this other mysterious character who befriends Bruce, the way they fight each other and play off each other and defeat the students at the end, I thought it worked really well. I'm enjoying this, and the fact that it's only 10 issues, it doesn't bother me as much as it appears to bother you. We knew that this was 10 issues going into it, so I never expected that we would get all the details. And the fact that you want more, that you want to know what led to this, and I think that's probably part of the goal here, is that if you're excited for this and you want more, well, we probably will get more of these types of stories, because we know Chip Zdarsky is going to be around for a while, since he's the new writer of Batman. And this just puts a smile on my face, because these are the types of stories that I like. Sort of planting some seeds. And make no mistake, some of the seeds that Chip Zdarsky might be planting in this 10-issue series might bear fruit in his Batman stories. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, again, my disappointment comes from the fact that, yeah, you're right, I want more, and that does lend credence to how good this story is, and I'm not saying that it's not. But my whole thing is, even Zdarsky himself, in his newsletter, was saying, this is the definitive, hey, what did Bruce Wayne do in those years where he was gone? Except it's not, because we're skipping over stuff. So, yeah, I had expectations, and maybe I shouldn't have, based on the way DC marketed this, based on what Zdarsky himself was saying. And it goes back to I am making an assumption that League of Assassins, because Karigi himself, when Bruce says, who are they, when he finally confronts him when he's leaving, and Karigi says, they're the price I pay to teach without worry, right? So obviously, as powerful as Karigi is, there's got to be somebody even more powerful that could stop him. So yeah, my mind immediately goes to Ra's al Ghul. He's got to have the blessing. And so what is the price that he pays in order to have this blessing and be able to do what he does? Well, he's got to train assassins. And if you look at the text, when Karigi answers, he says, assassins in training, and the word assassins is bolded, and then it says sent to me by a benefactor, and the word benefactor is bolded. So to me, that's saying you're saying assassins bolded when you're talking about assassins in the DC universe.
Yeah,
That's the League of Shadows.
it's a
In the
safe bet. Yeah.
benefactor of that, that's Ra's al Ghul. Now, again, it's not coming right out and saying it, but I mean, that's got to be what's insinuated, and maybe Zdarsky is leaving it purposely vague so that it does leave the door open for other storytellers or even himself to come back in later. And then he finishes it by, and I shepherd them. I am left alone to do what I do best. So, yeah, I mean, Karigi's all about passing on his knowledge. He says, I'm not here to judge anything, but the techniques. This is my art. A writer writes, a painter paints. If you're a martial artist, this is what you do. You pass on your knowledge. So, right or wrong, teaching the dim mock, the death touch. Again, he doesn't judge. He just teaches, and what the people choose to do with it is up to them. I think that's a kind of a blasé way to go through life. I don't agree with that philosophy. Kind of a laissez-faire uh, philosophy there. I don't think in the real world it's practical. I think if you teach somebody how to kill other people with just their touch, you are responsible for the people that they kill. That some of that blood is on your hands. Obviously, Karigi doesn't see it that way. But again, that's part of what makes the story so intriguing. And you could look at it this way too. Like here's Bruce Wayne. Some would argue the greatest hero, Batman, the greatest hero in the DC pantheon. Uh, and he's basically saying the ends justify the means. He's not trying to stop Karigi here, at least not at this point. Maybe he will at some point further down the line in Zdarsky's story. But even he's saying, well, the ends justify the means. I'm going to, leave. I'm not going to try to stop Karigi from training all these people, training these assassins, because again, he thinks the ends justify the means. So pretty interesting way to look at it. All right, well, let's move on. Up next, we have Catwoman number 42. This is from writer Tinny Howard. Nico Leone does the art. Veronica Gandini on colors. Simon Bolin on letters. I will say this about Catwoman as a series since Tinny Howard has come on. It is a very consistent book in quality, both in terms of art and in terms of story and pacing and structure. It is enjoyable. I do like the direction that Tinny Howard is taking it. However, I have the same sort of critique about the book that I've had since the beginning. It feels like sort of similar to the book we just talked about in my mind, where there's some stuff that's being skipped over. We are moving at a very breakneck pace here. And maybe it's just in contrast to the Ram V run that came right before, where everything felt a little more deliberate. So I won't say that I feel like things are being missed, but it does feel like everything is moving so quickly. And particularly in this issue, we get a lot of dialogue, a lot of word balloons. It's a very wordy issue. So while I enjoy what's happening in the book, I don't really have a sense of who Catwoman is to Tinny Howard yet, because it feels a little more plot driven rather than character driven for who Selina is. I definitely appreciate leaning back into the organized crime aspect of who Selina is and that world. It feels very far removed from the Selina Kyle that was in the Tom King run of Batman, or is in the Bat Cat series that's going on right now, or even the Catwoman Lonely City that we'll talk about, that being a Black Label book. I mean, this is really Selina just a hair's width away from still being a criminal wrapped up in the world of crime bosses and whatnot in Gotham City. So again, if that's the direction that Tinny Howard wants to take it, that's fine. But it just doesn't necessarily jive with recent DC history for Selina Kyle. Setting that aside, is it an interesting story? Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very intriguing. I like where she's taken it, almost to the point where that's my complaint. Can we slow down just a half a beat, so that I can enjoy this a little more? Because man, does it move really, really fast. That being said, the Nico Leone art, it's its own thing. It is so noirish and stylized, and the setting itself it feels like a cross between the traditional Gotham City that we see, that's dark and very shadowed, with kind of this 80s Miami Vice vibe with a lot of pinks and purples and sort of these neon colors. So I really dig the aesthetic of the book, and I think the aesthetic of the visuals that Nico Leone gives us is really starting to pair up and dovetail very, very well with the narrative style that Tini Howard is giving us. Um, but again, going back to this idea of pacing, if she slows it down just a little bit, I think the art will land with even more impact, if you can believe that. So, really love the art, especially the colors. Like I said, that Veronica Gandini has given us with a lot of the neons, and at the beginning, um, you know, playing off of issue 41, where some of these members of one of the crime families are in Selina's apartment, and she's fighting against one of them here in the first couple pages, and he's wearing this jacket. Actually, it's a she. She's wearing this jacket that looks like it's glowing. You know, this is static art, and it looks like it's glowing. It's fantastic. So great color work by Veronica Gandini, beautiful line work, great character work too from Tini Howard. I'd like it to slow down just a little bit, and hopefully it will once we're done with this first arc here, where she's kind of established her tone. Because I just want a little more time to savor the story. But yeah, I really feel like this issue, things are really starting to come together. What did you think about this one?
This was the best issue out of her this issue. I think this is the fifth issue ending this story arc, and this is the best one so far. I agree with you that there's a lot happening, but I'm gonna cut Teeny Howard a lot of slack here because I bitch a lot about decompression, and this story was fun. I had a lot of fun with this story, and this story really came together very well for me. I love the fact. I mean, this is Catwoman finding herself in an almost an impossible situation, and this is Teeny Howard's Catwoman. I got a taste of how Teeny Howard views Catwoman. Selena really does. She's about protecting strays. I mean, in Ram V's run, we knew we were shown a Catwoman, a Selena Kyle, who cares about the strays, who cares about a certain portion of Gotham City. At heart, uh, Catwoman Selena is about protecting the innocent and protecting those that are like her on the streets. And I think from a thematic point of view, I think Teeny Howard has at least continued that tradition or that theme that Ram V had, and that is this whole arc began because Catwoman wanted to avenge essentially a nobody, a girl who was a dancer in a bar that Black Mask considered a nobody. In fact, one of the themes in this issue, and Catwoman all but says it. You know, she says, "You can't defend against women like me. You've never even respected us, meaning us women, enough to even study us. You just make us your enemy." And Black Mask is a chauvinist. He's a pig, and he wants to. He hates Catwoman. He wants to take Catwoman out. The only reason he can't just take Catwoman out is that there are five crime families in Gotham, and they vote, and a majority of them, 3 out of 5 of them, they have to vote to take Catwoman out. Black Mask is saying, "Look, don't worry about it. Let's take Catwoman out." They're afraid of how Batman's going to react. If they kill Catwoman, they just know that Batman's not far behind, and they don't want that kind of mess. Well, Selena is way ahead of them. Selena understands that this is like the plan, and Iko, uh, of the Hasagawa family, and that's from Genevieve Valentine's run, has basically sort of gives her some information saying, "Look, don't, you know, if you want my vote, I'm one of those crime families, but uh, you're going to have to convince at least one other crime family member from another crime family to side with you, Selena. And if you do that, then I will flip my vote, and it'll be 3-5, 3-2, and you'll be okay." And the manner in which Teeny Howard tells that story of how Catwoman sets up the Black Mask, it's so great. She goes to Valmont, which was that sort of like, I guess, gender neutral character, I guess, from early on, and goes to him and has him help her with a forgery. And we didn't know what Valmont was going to help her forge. And it's discovered that what she does is that she she utilizes her connections to all the women of the dance club and all the women, all powerful men. Catwoman knows are have women do their bidding for them. Women do their schedules. Women do everything, and she finds out essentially where Black Mask has a dentist appointment of all things. And while he's getting his teeth worked on, Catwoman literally steals his mask, has Valmont forge the mask, duplicate it, and to great effect. And the Black Mask is obsessed with his mask because he built. Black Mask had his mask crafted from the coffin of his dead father, and so it means a lot to him. And so much of the story happens. They have the vote. It's 3-5 in favor of killing Catwoman, but Black Mask himself changes his vote not to kill Catwoman, because if they do, Catwoman is taunting him with his mask, saying, "You're not even wearing your real mask. I got your mask. If you want to shoot me between the eyes, go ahead. You're going to be destroying your mask that you made from the coffin of your dead father." And it's masterful. Black Mask changes his vote. He appears. She pisses off Black Mask to such a point that by the end of the issue, Black Mask is pretty much acting psychotically, and the other crime families, the heads of the other crime families, the Tommaso family, the Hasegawa family, the Sullivan family, and the Ebenescu family, they all basically changed their vote because they realized that Roman Sionis as Black Mask, he's losing it. He's lost his objectivity because of his obsession with Catwoman. And so at the end, with him being defeated, we get this a final scene, which was a little bit jarring, but I thought very well done, where Catwoman goes back to the club, the Kitty Cat House, and to give her condolences to the one of the dancers that was killed in the opening issue of this story arc. But I thought this was well done. I agree that the pacing was very fast. It would have been nice to have slowed it down a bit, but the story is there. I didn't mind the extra exposition here. I thought it worked. I thought it helped me understand the voice that Tini Howard was giving to Selina, and it's different than Ram V, because it's coming off the heels of a very successful Ram V iteration of Catwoman. I think we should be reminded that this actually fits in nicely with Genevieve Valentine's run on Catwoman. It's more consistent. Had it come off the heels of that run, I think people would be talking a lot more positively than they generally are about this run. I like this. And this is something that I love the humor here. I love how Catwoman got one up on Black Mask here. I thought it was fantastic, stealing the Black Mask, stealing his Black Mask, using it against him. Literally the one vote. I mean, literally orchestrating things so the Black Mask changes his vote so that Catwoman is not killed. I mean, that was just masterful how she pulled that off, and all by utilizing all these other women, like, because all powerful men have women that work under them, doing their schedules, doing everything else, and how she utilized their power. I mean, this was actually an uplifting comic book. It says something about the dichotomy of the relationship between men and women. It plays to, in one of the iterations of Catwoman's origin, she was a woman of the night. She was a hooker, and so she was abused, and so if anybody understands the voices and the tribulations that women who work the streets and maybe work the nightclubs and work those jobs that to make a living, Selena Kyle understands that. And I thought this really, Teenie Howard did a good job giving voice to that aspect of maybe the darker aspects of Gotham here, and all with these 5 families, Gotham families. I mean, this was well done. There was a lot of narrative stuff to play with here. And I think Teenie Howard, given the amount of real estate she had, I think she pulled it off, notwithstanding that it got a little wordy at times, but I'm quite forgiving on that.
Yeah, I don't want to come across as not as saying I didn't like the fact that it had a lot of dialogue. I just was, yeah, it was all necessary in my mind. But for those that maybe like to have the story told a little more visually, and I think that does go back to this idea of just how fast paced it is. A lot of the things that were being told in the dialogue are things that we're not seeing on the page. This isn't a instance like, think back to those early Spawn issues where it's a wall of text and then we see the same thing in that's being described in the wall of text in the art. That's not the case here. This dialogue isn't necessary, but it is a pretty wordy book. So anyway, let's move on. We have the end of the Robin series. This is issue number 6. This is from writer Tim Seeley. Baldemar Rivas is the artist. Romulo Fajardo Jr. does the colors. Steve Wan's on letters. What do you think of the way this one wrapped up, Rocky?
Well, I never I came into this series not giving it a lot of not giving it much of a chance because I was very biased against the fact that I didn't want this series. I didn't want a Robin series. I felt all Robined out and so here we are in issue 6 and goddamn I will give Tim Seeley credit. This actually I understand the point that he's trying to make. I I'm still not in the mood for a Robin story. I'm still, I still think that there are too damn many Robins, but it is what it is. But I got to give him credit. Tim Seeley does a good job narratively weaving all these Robins around the Batman. And goddamn, if he doesn't have something to say, and I thought he said it rather well here in this story. This is about these we've reached the final issue here where the original Robin ends up being this Anita Jean, this Jenny Wren, and her origin is very effectively told here. And we discover that early in Batman's career, there was this villain named Cormac Dodge, who was essentially an escape artist and also a professional hacker. And ultimately, he ends up causing a lot of havoc for Batman by hacking into the Batcave and causing Batman a lot of havoc. And ultimately, somebody very close to this villain, Cormac Dodge, was this this Anita Jean, this young woman, who ultimately, Batman befriends her and sort of trains her, and she uses her hacking ability to help Batman defeat Cormac Lodge. Only she ends up shooting Cormac Dodge in the head, killing him. And of course, she was one of this sort of rewrites Batman's early history. Now, there's some criticism there. I mean, out of the blue, now suddenly we have new history of a new young Robin, and this Jenny Wren character. And this young Jenny Wren character, the reason why Batman, you've never heard of her since then, is that she ends up utilizing lethal force. I mean, she puts Jason Todd to shame. I mean, she utilizes lethal force. She kills Cormac Dodge, and she seemingly dies. But as it turns out, that her death was nothing but essentially an illusion because of the various tech used in this thing, this SKP tech eye devices, which ultimately Jenny Wren has been using essentially for mind control, and she's been utilizing that to manipulate all the Robins. All the Robins have their gauntlet, and what a gauntlet is for a Robin is whatever your formative adventure was. Your gauntlet. You're sort of like the Jedi trials for Jedi. You've got a trial that Batman gives you, a trial that you got to pass before you become a Robin. They call it a gauntlet. All the 5 Robins have their own gauntlet that they had to go through. And so, of course, the Jenny Wren. Of course, Jenny Wren's gauntlet, I guess, was that she failed it because she utilized lethal force. And this Jenny Wren, this Anita Jean, she kept an eye on all the Robins that Batman had over the years, and she of course wants revenge, and ultimately revenge on Batman. This ends on a note where Batman asks essentially forgiveness from Jenny Wren, saying it's my fault. I failed you. You didn't fail the gauntlet when you killed Cormac Dodge. I failed you. I didn't believe that. I thought Batman displayed a little bit too much compassion for a murderer. But then he always does that when it's family. He forgives Jason Todd too many times too over the years. Batman ultimately, he's always, that's Batman's nature. He's hard and he comes across like a jerk. And then writers will always show his softer side, and they'll show some compassion, but only when he's confronted. There was an indication at the end of this story that maybe all of this was the 6th gauntlet. That this was all a plan by Batman to test all the Robins and bring them all together. That maybe this was a master plan by Bruce Wayne. But in any event, I don't think that was the case. But I like how Tim Seeley brought it all together, and he weaved the story, and it actually ends with an image of a Robin actually tweeting on a lamppost in broad daylight, not in the darkness, which you would normally expect a Batman story or Robin story to end. And I always find that interesting that, Batman and Robin, when you think of a bat, you think of nighttime. And I like the fact that the final panel of Robin's here ends in the daytime with a bird with a bird singing because it is kind of an interesting dichotomy of all the animals you'd expect to team up with vis-a-vis names. Batman and Robin is sort of an odd team up of if you look at it uh, from an animal point of view. But in any event, I it was a nice ending. It was a nice ending. This was a story that took me by surprise. I went in with all the negativity you could imagine, not giving this series the benefit of the doubt or even my attention, quite frankly. And then slowly over time, it grew on me. And this ending was a nice ending. This was an impressive ending. Tim Seeley brought all those disparate plot points together, and this Jenny Wren character is actually interesting. He actually made me care a little bit about her, and that's shocking because I think there's too damn many Robins. So kudos to Tim Seeley and the art by Baldemar Rivas. Uh, I'm not a huge fan of the art because I'm not a big fan of the style, but it did grow on me. It was consistent. I could understand uh, the character interactions, the emotional moments, the dialogue between the characters. I could see all of that. All of that was illustrated very well. There was a deep moments here between Nightwing and when Batman when he's talking about when they first came up with the name Robin, and it's a callback, and it's the reason why the name Robin was chosen. It's an interesting callback, and it pulls in the origin of Jenny Wren, and it actually pulls in and related to the entire narrative as a whole. It works very well. So, Tim Seeley, I could tell he's thought about this story for a long time, and when he finally got an opportunity, he indicated an opportunity to write it for that round robin, and then having won it, I can see because I think that there's a lot of thought put into this and weaving all these Robins and characters together. I think he did an admirable job.
Yeah, I agree. He did a great job, and he has his opinions about Batman using a kid sidekick for sure, and a lot of it comes out in this story. That being said, this isn't actually my favorite. Although I appreciated that he wrapped everything up pretty cleanly here. This isn't my favorite issue. I thought issue 5 landed with more emotional impact, especially that line about Batman isn't just there to catch the Robins when they fall, but the Robins are there to catch Batman when he falls. So I thought that issue landed a little bit better for me. This one almost felt a little anticlimactic because yes, it does give us the definitive origin of Jenny Wren, Anita Jean as a Robin, and she's an interesting character. But I sort of go back to what you said. There's too many Robins, and despite the fact that there are some interesting aspects to her origin, and there might be more of her story to tell, some other creator could come along and pick up the pieces and tell something compelling. I still don't really care about her as a character. She feels very much like a plot device here rather than a fully realized character for me. And so, based on the fact that this issue focuses on her, it didn't really land for me. But I do agree that the Baltimore Rivas art, it's not my style of art. Little manga influenced, a little too much of an animation style, a little too clean, not very light backgrounds, not a lot of detail, so it doesn't really speak to me. But his storytelling is very good. I love the camera angles and how he zooms in on faces. Sometimes all you get is a mouth or an eye or what have you to show emotion or reaction to a particular line of dialogue. So I appreciated all of that. I think he's a good storyteller visually, and overall this was an interesting series that, much like yourself, I didn't have very high expectations for, despite the fact that I'm a fan of Tim Seeley. I think he's a very talented writer. There were so many other stories in that first year of Round Robin that seemed more interesting to me. This was almost at the bottom of my list of what I wanted to win, just because we have so much Batman already. And here we are with Robin's winning as a derivative story. But, all credit to the creative team. This was a very well crafted story. And it did have something to say. So, all right, well, let's move on. Nightwing, speaking of Batman related, Nightwing number 91 is up next. For whatever reason, our press preview copy didn't have the credits, but we know it is written by Tom Taylor. Geraldo Borges handles the interior art. Adriano Lucas is on colors, and I believe it's Wes Abbott on letters. Apologies if I'm incorrectly crediting somebody there. Um, so we saw last issue there was another attempt on Dick Grayson's life, and he chose to go and hide out, or maybe chose to go hide out. It's not the right way to put it, because Wally West comes and picks him up and takes him to Mr. Terrific, where he gets a new costume that's a little more protective, and then he takes him to Central City or Keystone City, whichever one it is. I can never keep him straight. Where Wally lives, and he's hiding out with Wally's family. And in this issue, they get a chance to sort of fight back. Hey, who are the ones pulling the trigger? Who are the ones that are trying to assassinate Bruce Wayne? He obviously knows, or not Bruce Wayne, but Dick Grayson rather. But Dick and Barbara and Wally, everybody, they all know who's at the end, who's behind it, right? Like it's all being manipulated, or the shots are being called by Blockbuster, but who are the people that are actually trying to kill him? So we get a Lady Shiva appearance, and we get the appearance of another character who I think this is the first time. It's certainly the first time I've ever heard of her. La Agent Funier or Funebraire,
Funebra,
Funebre maybe.
Funebra,
Funebra, is
Funebre.
that it? Yeah, I know it's French. My French is not
Yeah, neither.
very good, as you can tell. But yeah, Nightwing describes her as a sommelier of death. So she shows up here for the first time, not really in the same class. Yeah, you might be a world class assassin, but when you're facing Flash and Nightwing, you're sort of out of your league. And I didn't mind that she was defeated pretty easily. But what I enjoyed even more than that was the fact that all the rest of Nightwing's friends, they go out and um, foil these other assassination attempts. Like, so they defeat this agent, and they go into her system basically, and they say, "Look at all these people. There's an entire hidden network of assassins." Um, and he's like, "I want to use them." And Wally's like, "Wait, you want to do what?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to send them all out on jobs. But the people that they're unbeknownst to them, these squads of assassins, the people that they're charged with killing are members of the Titans, and so it's kind of like a setup. And so we see Donna Troy, we see Aqualad, we see John Kent Superman, we see Starfire, and they're all there to take down these would be assassins. And then Lady Shiva goes to Bloodhaven and goes to Blockbuster and is like, "Hey." Um, Blockbuster assumes she's there for the Dick Grayson job, and she's like, "No, I'm here to, as a courtesy, to tell you that Dick Grayson must be protected from somebody way up on high, and if you want him killed, you're going to have to do it yourself, because over 20 of the top assassins are now in custody, because they took, they were charged with taking out Dick Grayson. So clearly, Dick Grayson has some really powerful people in his corner, and this loose confederacy of assassins. Nobody's going to be willing to take that job. So if you want it done, you're going to have to do it yourself." And we're also told that one of the assassins was found dead with his heart removed. So we know what that's all about. That's not related to what Dick Grayson and the Titans did. That has everything to do with the Heartless Killer, or whatever he's called, that we saw
Yeah.
way back in the first issue of Tom King's run. So I enjoyed this. It was action packed. The pacing was breakneck, but it suited the story, especially with Wally West guest starring here. We know how fast he moves. The art isn't as refined as you would expect to get when Bruno Redondo is handling the art duties, but I thought Borges did an adequate job. Um, Again, it's nowhere, even the page layouts, the way the panels are laid out on the page and whatnot, it's just nowhere near as dynamic or as innovative of what Bruno Redondo does. But that's to take away nothing from Borges' storytelling, which is fine. His transitions from panel to panel are very smooth. The action is very clear. I didn't even mind that the backgrounds tended to be light at times, because I enjoyed his storytelling for the most part. So yeah, I think Tom Taylor on Nightwing continues to be a really good title. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm beginning to see why some of the criticism of Tom Taylor by others in the past has been that Well, too much character work, too much touchy-feely moments, not enough plot and substance to move the story along. I can kind of see that here. Not a lot happens in this issue, but wait, when I think about it, there is some very fun character moments. There is, and I'm kind of torn. On the one hand, I don't feel that we're not really we know nothing about the blockbuster storyline. Really isn't moving forward all that much. We're not learning anything about about his sister, the mayor. We're not really the substance of the plot isn't really moving. But at the same time, I have to ask myself, am I satisfied? Well, there are moments of satisfaction in this issue. Uh, they don't move the plot a lot, but they're kind of funny. I mean, even the page with what stands out to me was the page with Nightwing, you know, with in front of KG Beast, telling he wants to take KG Beast's picture, but he doesn't really want to see his picture. He just wants to open up his iPhone to figure out what he's up to. Uh, Nightwing shows off his detective skills, and right away he figures out from the GPS in the van that him and Wally were transported in that the bomb that KG Beast is referring to is in the Gotham City Library. So Tom Taylor manages while at the same time that he is working these character moments that we love him so much for, we actually do get some movement of the plot at the same time that often is told to us, not always shown to us, but it's that balance. And if you love his character work, you love his character works. And Tom Taylor fans are in two camps. The ones there are ones that really love his character work, and we're going to forgive him for maybe some slowness or plotting nature of the plot itself. And others get, it depends on what your I guess tolerance line is for, okay, when is too much character work, and we want to get this plot moving already. And then, of course, I guess there's, maybe I'm in between there. So I like this. I love the interplay between Wally and Nightwing. And you know what? I'm getting exactly what I asked for. So I'm scolding myself at the same time as I'm saying this because I'm kind of being hypocritical. It's like, well, goddamn, I bitch about I want character driven plot. Well, I'm getting a lot of character work, but I want character driven plots. I want plots to be character driven, but I want the plot to move along a little faster too. So I'm being pretty hard on Tom Taylor here. I enjoyed this, but I do wish this would move a little bit faster. But as a compliment to Tom Taylor, and perhaps this is an underhanded compliment, uh, I'm interested about so many aspects of his story that I'm getting from his character work. And then I turn around and I want the plot to move faster because I'm so fascinated by what he's introduced through his character work. So I want my cake and I want to eat it too. And so, so anyways, it's a good problem to have. But if constructively critical, I would like the plot to move a little faster.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so my first reaction upon finishing reading it, I went, well, that was pretty good, but yeah, we didn't get much movement for the Bloodhaven story other than Lady Shiva showing up and telling Blockbuster, if you want something done, you're gonna have to do it yourself. That's basically the only movement we got for the main plot.
Yeah.
Um, and so I did have that sense, but then as I thought about it more, I kind of came around to your way of thinking, where I was like, well, you know what, that's okay because I'm enjoying it for what it is. Those character moments, like you said, the interaction between Dick Grayson and Wally West, who've been friends for, what, 40 years at this point, not longer. I mean, obviously not in comic time, but
Yeah.
they've been friends their whole adult lives in continuity. And so, yeah, I enjoy seeing it's okay to once in a while to have this sort of issue where we don't get much forward momentum on plot. But I will agree with you. You can't do it every issue, Tom Taylor. You do have to give us something because, yeah, like, how excited were we when we found out about his sister, right? And we haven't
Yeah.
really touched on that since. It's been
Yeah.
mentioned, but we haven't let's get a little bit of that going as well. So anyway, not that we planned it out this way, but I'm glad you get to go first on this next one. It's because it's one of your favorite DC series. It's Flash number 781 from writer Jeremy Adams. Fernando Passarin does the pencils. We have Matt Ryan on inks. Jeremy Cox does the colors for most of the book. Pete Pantazias fills in on a couple of pages, and then Rob Lee handles the letters. So, what'd you think of this one?
I actually thought that this was I'm gonna say the same thing. It's similar to review to what we just finished about Nightwing. I actually, I'm not a, I'm, full disclosure, I'm not like a huge Wallace West fan. It's not like I'm not a fan of Wallace West. It's just that I don't, I I'd rather see him in Young Justice or Teen Titans. I'd like to see him in. I don't need him showing up here in the Flash, but I don't mind it. It's good. Jeremy Adams is really good at this. He's good at writing. I mean, I love Jeremy Adams, and Jeremy Adams. He told us in the interview you let me join you on when we interviewed Jeremy Adams. He told us that this issue would be coming up because he wanted to focus on Wallace West because he loves Wallace West as well. And his love for the character, it shines through here, and you can tell. This is you could tell here that this is Wally West basically he wants Wallace to basically join him to just have a day of fun. And he shows up, and Wallace West is in the middle of a test, and Wally shows up and says, "Let's go, let's go have some fun. All pedal, no brakes" is the name of the issue, and that's what this issue is. And it's just it's Wally basically explaining to Wallace his experiences when he was basically growing up, because he was a young Flash. He was younger than Wallace was when he got his powers, or at least that's the impression that I got from the way the story is told. And Wally tells a story about how at first he would just go out for adventures with Barry alongside Barry Allen, but after a while he started to go out and do his own adventuring on the side. And he speaks of one time where he ends up meeting Barry, during a crisis, and and Barry never scolded him for going out on his own. And it was just about basically a hero sort of finding your own path, finding your own way, and not being afraid to make mistakes. And it's sort of like there's a little bit of tropiness there, but it's exactly the type of lesson that you would expect a mentor to bestow upon a mentee. And Wally does it in such a way where he's not forcing it down Wallace's mouth. He's basically just, he just wants Wallace to know that he's there for him. Let's have some fun. And that's exactly what they do. And really not much happens this issue. This is just two guys, Wally and his cousin Wallace. They're just out, they're running around literally, and they're having fun. And they're just basically running around the world, doing different things, helping people, doing what superheroes do. And, quite frankly, when I read this issue, I I liked Wallace West more. And you know what I couldn't help but think when I read this issue? I wish that just once that we would get some sense between Arthur Curry and Jackson Hyde. I don't feel that we got an issue between Arthur Curry and Jackson Hyde where Arthur Curry and Jackson Hyde have the kind of moments that Wally here has with Wallace. And it just, to me, this is in one single issue. Jeremy Adams was able to do what Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas have not been able to do in vis-a-vis the relationship between Arthur Curry and Jackson Hyde. And I just point that out, that you don't need to necessarily have a whole series called Aquaman, and I'm not trying to pick on Aquaman or Jackson Hyde, but it is a point worth mentioning that sometimes just having a fun issue. These are both characters these are likable characters, and they bloody well should be. They're superheroes, and sometimes if you put too much thought into just establishing these legacy relationships, sometimes you can do more harm than good. And so now that's a topic for another day, maybe a rant and rave at some point. But to me, this is establishing a relationship done right. Focus on what works in the relationship before you tell us, before you show us all the dysfunction. We're not looking at an angry or upset Wallace West here who's angrily rebelling against what's happened to him. I just like this. This is just good fun. This is what Jeremy Adams is really good at, and I think there's a lesson to be had here, especially if you're writing Aquaman or Aquaman. And but yeah, I enjoyed this. Jeremy Adams, great job. And again, not much happens, but for a relationship issue, for those who love the Flash, I think this is an issue that we needed because we were wondering what's happened with Wallace West, and we've been given short thrift with the Young Justice series and Teen Titans Academy. We got short shift with that, so it's nice to see these two Flashes together.
Yeah, I agree. This was a really fun issue. Yeah, it's so interesting where DC is at right now. I talked at the beginning about some restructuring, perhaps. One thing I didn't mention is that Discovery has come right out and apparently been holding interviews and come right out and said they want like a Kevin Feige type to oversee the whole thing. And I
Right.
saw on social media where Jimmy Palmiotti was like, "Well, they have my number." Not that I
Yes.
necessarily think that Jimmy would be. I mean, I don't know if he would be good or not in terms of steering the ship for film and TV and that sort of thing. That's not where his expertise lies. He might be very good at it. I don't know. I certainly would be willing to give him a shot, but he knows comics, and we
Yeah.
have specifically asked him before on this show, "Hey, if you were the head of DC Comics, what would be your first step?" And he oftentimes talks about getting the whole group together and showing them Darwin Cook's New Frontier and saying we need to get back to telling stories with this spirit of these characters. Well, that's what this issue is. This issue stands on its own. You don't have to know anything that's going on in DC for the last 30 years. You don't have to read any DC comics going forward if you don't want to. You can read this on its own and get a sense of who Wally West is, get a sense of who Wallace West is, and their relationship. And it's just a fun issue. And the style of Fernando Passarin's art with this beautiful detail and the visual tricks he does, from the "let's go," carved into the ground on the sidewalk, to Wallace bouncing a crumpled up piece of paper off of, I guess that's supposed to be Gorilla Greg's head. It's fantastic. They're racing over the top of the St. Louis Arch. They're running through the Grand Canyon. I mean, it's just fun, and the style of art and the visual cues that Fernando Passarin is taking from the script that Jeremy Adams is giving him work perfectly together, and it stands alone, right? And it's getting back to the classic feel of DC Comics, like Jimmy's talking about. We just got done talking about the idea of writing for the trade, whether uh, you listen to what I said about, was Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, Blue and Gold, was that supposed to be more? Because it seemed like we got one 6 issue arc and then a truncated arc, or what's going on with Batman the Knight, like, writing for the trade in 4 or 5, 6 issues, what have you. This stands on its own. This is what comics used to be. Like, it was rare where you got something that continued to 2 issues, let alone 3, 4, 5, or 6. This is going back to that idea that you can pick up a comic and read it, and it stands on its own, and you can get a good story, and it's a lot of fun with great art. That's what this is. And Rocky's right. Like, Jeremy Adams is doing a fantastic job, and I have to wonder, like, what the heck is going on that DC Comics? We know Jeremy Adams. He's told us on this show. We know he has ideas for other books. Why is he only writing this one? The guy clearly is talented, and he talked on the show about the fact that he wants to make these books accessible for readers of all ages as well. And we all know comics need a younger generation of readers coming in. So
Yeah.
it's hard to oversell just how good this issue would be for somebody who's not familiar with anything that's going on in the DCU, and you could just pick this up and read it. So
Yeah.
there's so much good here, even to the point of Wally West keeps calling Wallace Ace, that play on Wall Ace, if you look at the
Yeah.
way it's spelled. And,
That's
and
great.
Wallace
Yeah.
keeps saying, yeah, stop calling me Ace. Stop calling me Ace. It would be a good nickname for him. I think it's kind
Great
of
nickname.
awkward, yeah, for Wally West to turn around and call this other guy Wallace or Wally when that's his own name. So yeah, I like that aspect. It shows that Jeremy Adams has put a lot of thought into this. So yeah, I thought this was a fantastic issue for one and done. There's so many great moments packed in it, like I was saying, especially from the Fernando Passarin art, whether it's going to Scarticus, which is where Warlord series took place for many, many years. Uh, Wally and Wallace coming across the Legion of Doom, the Dome of Doom headquarters, was a lot of fun. The big explosion when Girder is robbing the bank. I love how I'm assuming it was the letter that did the sound effect there. How Wally and Wallace are sort of the holes in the middle of the O's for the
It's
kaboom.
yeah, the kaboom, the in the
Yeah,
boom,
yeah,
the O's in the boom.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. Like again, much like the issue we got where you had to turn the page, which sort of tied into the
Yeah,
other stuff that happened in Gemworld, but you could read it on its own. How the narrative fits in with the visual sequential storytelling so well. It happens again in this issue that stands alone on its own. The color work is fantastic. So yeah, it's really hard to say that Flash isn't the most DC of the DC books that are coming out right now in terms of just feeling classically DC, lighthearted, fun with
yeah,
fantastic art. So yeah, if I was looking to get like a 10 or 12-year-old into DC Comics, it's probably the book that I would start them off with,
yeah.
of the current books that are coming out anyway.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on. Next, we have Wonder Woman Evolution #6. This is from writer Stephanie Phillips, Mike Hawthorne on pencils, Adriano Di Benedetto on inks, Stefano Raphael helps out with the pencils and also does inks, Jordi Belair on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. So we saw last issue, it was revealed that there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. It's kind of meta because everything that Wonder Woman is seeing, supposedly from these alien beings who are basically saying, "Prove to us that humanity deserves to continue to exist," and they're showing her illusions and different trials and different things that she's having to do. But even that itself is an illusion. So she's almost, in a simulation within a simulation because it was revealed last issue that there's this group of scientists that are manipulating her and putting these images in her head. And we get on the final page here, we see that she's in a deprivation tank, and it even says next issue is going to be called Deprivation. So she's in this tank. She's restrained, and she's got all these wires connected to her head. I'm assuming she's suspended in some sort of liquid because she has like a mask over her nose and mouth. I'm assuming to help her breathe, or maybe it's to keep her sedated. I'm not sure. But what's clear is everything that's happening in her head, all these different scenarios that are being fed to her, none of it is happening. None of it is true. She keeps being presented with these challenges that I think are supposed to be unable to be overcome, and she keeps finding a way to overcome them. So, in a way, the story from Stephanie Phillips is showing us how powerful and capable Wonder Woman is, and how she just won't quit. In addition to showing us that, hey, these people are trying to manipulate her. So, kind of going along with that, I've said many times when reviewing this book that Mike Hawthorne's art gives us the most powerful looking Wonder Woman in terms of her musculature and whatnot that I can ever remember seeing. So um, it's not necessarily the aesthetic for Wonder Woman that you would normally see, but I think for this story, for what Stephanie Phillips is trying to do, that it's working. So what do you think, Rocky?
Well, I will give a shout out to Stephanie Phillips because I know on Twitter she's always posting pictures of herself working out, whether it's with other creators at Comic Cons or whatever. So she's a woman. She is a former, I think, a Thai fight. What kind of fighter was she? She was
Yeah, I think she still fights Muay Thai.
yeah,
Uh,
Muay Thai. I mean, Mai Tai or what? No, you drink a Mai Tai. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyways, anyways, she's clearly somebody. She's physically fit herself, and she obviously her iteration of Wonder Woman is has more musculature than most, and that's pretty cool because it's nice to see different iterations of the character. And Mike Hawthorne is doing a good job with that, along with Adriano Di Benedetto's inks. And uh, I still have though. I still have some. I feel a little bit misled by this story a little bit, although maybe that's from the solicits. In fairness, this doesn't very clearly this doesn't appear to be at all about a judgment from the gods. That was all. It's clear, I think now that's all misdirection. This is all something that's taken place in her head. We there's the villain in play here. We're not sure who this villain is, but somebody is manipulating Wonder Woman. His idea is that he wants to, I guess, debilitate Wonder Woman psychologically by challenging her repeatedly with these moral dilemmas, whether it's illusions. There was in the earlier issues there was illusions of her in Nuremberg, Germany, post World War II or at the end of World War II. She experienced the death of Silver Swan. Even Steve Trevor. She had a moral dilemma, an ethical dilemma in one issue with the Justice League in terms of what to do with an alien creature, whether or not to return an alien fugitive back to their planet because of a choice they made that Wonder Woman agreed with. Uh, she had issues with, obviously she battled her own fellow Amazons on Paradise Island and met Donna Troy, and all of these things. None of this has actually happened. And even here, this issue we're made privy to what Donna Troy, the character Donna Troy, that's also just an illusion, a figment of Wonder Woman's imagination, or wherever in the Matrix Wonder Woman is. The last day of Earth is Wonder Woman experiencing the last day of Earth because our sun explodes, and Wonder Woman attempts to save the day here by going up to the sun and absorbing the explosion of the sun. Again, kind of weird. I never knew Wonder Woman. Actually, to be honest, I never thought Wonder Woman as being someone who could fly in space. Although I guess that's a we can. Wonder Woman fans can disagree as to whether or not Wonder Woman can fly. Does she glide on air currents, or can she actually fly at supersonic speed? That's open for debate. Can she fly in space? Well, Stephanie Phillips' iteration of Wonder Woman certainly can, and also has the power to, through utilizing her gauntlets, can absorb the full radiation of an entire sun. How that saves the Earth, it obviously doesn't. It doesn't matter anyway, because none of this is actually happening. And that's the one thing that I find very frustrating, because I'm not really clear in my mind, and maybe it's going to come together because we got 2 issues left. It's not really clear in my mind how all these different experiences that Wonder Woman has experienced in this Matrix, how are all these themes directly related? It's like Wonder Woman is being challenged with these questions, but are not all. It's not obvious to me that all of this has to do with the one theme is humanity worthy? And now that we're told that it's all just a game and there are no gods and it's all a bunch of nonsense, when did the illusions begin? Was it really Superman that we even saw in the first issue, or was that an illusion too? Where what's the truth? And also, what I find interesting is I do note that Wonder Woman seems to be deprived of her magic lasso. When she's in this tank at the end, she doesn't have her magic lasso now. Not having the magic lasso would be the one thing that would deprive Wonder Woman of the ability to see through illusions, because in various iterations of the magic lasso, it allows her to see through deception. She doesn't appear to have her magic lasso, so that probably makes her more likely to be vulnerable to the computer machinations of this Matrix that Wonder Woman is hooked up to. But I'm talking more in terms of theme, because I love a good metaphor and I love a good theme. And I'm getting mixed signals as exactly what it is here and what is the actual point. What is Stephanie Phillips trying to say about this Wonder Woman, other than the fact that she can be tested, and okay, she's making all the choices you would expect Wonder Woman to make, but I'm just wondering where this is going and what the point is. This is the solicits again, which maybe the solicits are exaggerating, talk about this new major villain. And those aren't my words. That was in the advertisement. I'm looking at this so-called villain here, and he looks really, really boring. He's just chewing on an apple. He's like a Lex Luthor, but with hair. And he doesn't look at all that interesting. He just looks like another corporate type. Naturally, he's a man. And he's just in a lab. This feels very underwhelming to me. It feels underwhelming for all the stuff that Wonder Woman's going through, and she's basically just the goldfish in a bowl. And I don't know. It just uh, I don't know. This feels underwhelming to me. But what she's experiencing in her mind is exciting. What she's experiencing through this Matrix or whatever it is allows Mike Hawthorne to show off his best iteration of his of the character that he's capable of drawing. And I am curious to see how this ends, but very clearly the answer is irrelevant. It no longer matters what the answer is, because none of it's happening. So I can't help but to be a little disappointed in that regard, because I don't know what the stakes are here. So Wonder Woman's going to escape, and what? That's going to be it. Unhook her and away you go. So I'm not really sure what the stakes are here, because this is kind of meh to me right now, and I'd rather be lost in Wonder Woman's head going through those adventures than listening to the people in the lab, talk about, as some corporate guru type bites an apple and talks about, what adventure to feed into the mind of Wonder Woman next. it seems like an odd way to tell a story. But maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, the ending will give me more of a payoff than what I'm expecting.
I don't know. I take it as, like I said, they're throwing all these different things at Wonder Woman, these situations that are supposedly supposed to break her, right? Like the whole point is to convince her, it seems to me, to convince her that humanity is not worth saving, so that we can, in the end, in the words of the apple biting villain, have a brand new Wonder Woman. She seems to be handling every challenge thrown at her, and they keep escalating them. And it doesn't seem to make any difference. She's still Wonder Woman. She still finds a way to stay true to herself and for the most part win the day, or at least not give up hope, which she talks about not giving up hope a lot in this issue. So to me, that seems to be the point that Stephanie Phillips is making, that Wonder Woman, no matter the challenge, no matter how long the odds are stacked against her, that she still stays Wonder Woman, which in a way shows just how misguided this apple biting villain is at the end of the day, because that last line at the end of, when this is all said and done, we're going to have a brand new Wonder Woman. And all I could think was, dude, you're deranged if you think this is working, because clearly it's not. You think you can just keep upping the ante and she's not going to either figure out what's going on or find a way to escape. So I have a feeling he's going to be eating those words, and it's not going to be a brand new Wonder Woman. It's going to be the same Wonder Woman that we've always had, with Stephanie Phillips reminding us just how awesome Wonder Woman is. That being said, you need to stop reading the solicits, man, because the solicits don't have any. And granted, it's all we get in terms of what the story's about. But I have never, ever, in all my years of covering comics and talking to comic creators and having comic creators as friends, have I ever heard any comic creator go, yeah, I really like that solicit. But I cannot even count on both hands the number of times I've had comic book creators say, I hate the solicits. I hate what they say. I hate that the marketing department writes them. I wish I could write my own solicits. I've had that conversation with creators dozens and dozens and dozens of times.
Yeah.
The people that write the solicits oftentimes don't even read the comic. You can't go by anything the solicits say. I no longer read solicits. I would suggest everybody out there, shouldn't read the solicits or put any stock in them whatsoever. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and move on. Nice House on the Lake, number 8. This is from writer James Tynion. Alvaro Martinez Bueno does the art. Jordi Belair on colors. Man, this is a great book. What'd you think of issue number 8?
Yeah, this continues to just intrigue the hell out of me. I mean, this story of an alien named Walter who rescues 10 of his friends and puts them all in a nice house on the lake, which is kind of in a nice neat little bubble as the rest of the earth is destroyed. This nice house on the lake is protected. Him and his 10 friends that he handpicked over the course of 30 years as a human on earth. And he can give his 10 friends whatever they want, but his friends have a nasty habit of ultimately wanting to try to find a way out of this nice house on the lake. They have all the amenities they want, but ultimately they always try to find a way out. They find out the secrets. And the first 6 issues basically told the story of all these 10 people discovering the truth about Walter. That the earth was destroyed, that Walter was is clearly an alien of some kind, that he had protected them all. He got to pick and choose who to save from Armageddon, and he did so. And he's always mind wiping them. Walter is always mind wiping his friends so that they just, when they remember something and they remember that they're actually there, that the true nature of Walter and what happened, he always plays with their mind. And the theme here is really starting to come out, and it really comes into play here with issue 8, because each issue seems to have the same sort of pattern where it opens up with a narration from one of the 10 characters. And each one of these 10 characters, one is a writer, one is one might be a writer, an architect, or a painter, or a doctor, or whatever, a journalist, and they all have their own symbol, and they all get to whatever they wish for in the evening. It magically appears in the morning, and so it's seemingly a great place to be. But as they discovered in the opening 6 issues, there are certain places you go in this bit of real estate where the true horror, what happened to the earth, manifests itself. And each issue has one of these 10 characters. In this case, it's Sarah, who narrates that, Walter was always a different kind of person, as they got as she got to know Walter. Walter was always somebody who he sort of, when he befriended you, he sort of put you on the list. And then if he didn't like you, eventually you'd come off the list. And he even made reference from time to time about certain people being on the list, and the list being, of course, the list of the people that he would save when Armageddon occurred. And you there's a it's again it's the character work here and the dialogue, and you really see the interplay between these 10 people on this lake, because sooner or later they're going to drive each other insane. I mean, are they going to live there forever? I mean, imagine a place that you can never leave. And one of the characters named Ryan here, Ryan is she is an artist herself, but over the course of these 6 issues, there was another person that showed up, and that was Reg, and he's another artist. So we have a redundancy. Ryan feels redundant because her and Reggie, they're both artists. Reggie has created a shed, like he drew a design for a shed that was created the next day, and so Walter is doing these things to try to make them all happy, and he's suggesting, well, why don't we have a farm and build a farm? And Walter is always trying to distract them and away from trying to figure out where they're at. But they keep going back to, they have these group meetings in the mornings, and they want to build an antenna, and they want to try to pierce the veil and peer into the outside world and see what's going on. And meanwhile, there's another character that Walter is sort of hidden from view, and that's Nora. And Nora is sort of like in a prison cell. And this is where artist Alvaro Martinez Breno really shines. The character Nora is actually sort of like almost hidden behind the walls, and the artist does a great job showing Nora sort of being able to watch all the other characters mingle with each other and talk, and yet they don't know that she's essentially sort of trapped away. Walter, she knows the truth about Walter. Walter did not mind wipe all the characters. Nora's the one that he can talk to, and he talks about his frustrations about wanting them to get used to their situation, and to continue to move forward, and to stop trying to figure out and undo all the stuff that they did. And you can really see the frustration of Walter, and you can also see his flaws of character and his inability to let go, because all these 10 people, all his friends, they want to evolve, they want to grow, they're different people than, people change, but Walter doesn't want change. Walter hates change. Walter wants the characters to stay, his friends to stay how they are. And he's too much of a control freak. He's trying to control them. So there's themes here of control and dominance, and a reluctance to change, and extreme conservatism in terms of your expectations of friends, and how people change as they get older. And just this is probably arguably Tinian's best work in my mind out of all the stuff that he's written. So much potential here. I want this to continue on. I love the work that he does here. It's just this really is a series that I think the character work just shines. I don't know where this is going. That's what I find so fascinating about it. What happens when all of them find out? And what if Walter loses the ability to mind control them, or take away their knowledge as they slowly gain more information and knowledge about what Walter has done to them? Every time they do, he wipes their memory. At some point, something's going to happen, and Walter's going to have to face them without the ability to mind wipe them, because there's something truly horrific about their situation, and eventually you can only keep people in the dark for so long, and that's what you can tell that in the background. This is what this is building to, and I love this, man. Every time I read this issue, the character work, the dialogue, everything's spot on. This is the one issue. I remember when Tinian first started writing for DC, he was fairly exposition heavy, and he got very exposition heavy when Tinian wrote Justice League Dark, and he's gotten criticized that early on, but this is the one he's gotten much better. Like, I mean, he's the best writer. He's the best writer out there, arguably today, writing comic books today, arguably. And his use of his exposition, whenever I so completely trust Tinian now that if there's a page riddled with exposition and I know Tinian's the writer, I'll read every single word because there's a point to it. And man, I'm loving this, and I can't wait till this comes up. I don't know. I don't read Tinian's newsletter, but does this has shelf life? Is this set for a number of issues, or is this set to end, or what do you know about this series, Jason?
Yeah, it's 12 issues. Is what it's
Only
planned for.
12?
So
Oh wow,
yeah, we're two thirds of the way through. So
wow. Well, what do you think
and
of
you're
it?
right. Yeah, we don't we don't know where it's going, and that's what's so fascinating. And also, I feel like the art by Bueno here. I mean, I know his art mostly from the work he did with Tynan on Justice League Dark, which was very super heroic and very almost DC house style. So the choices he's making here and the choices that Jordi Belair is making with colors. I mean, this isn't traditional. Isn't colored in what I would consider a traditional fashion. Using a lot of purples and greens and blues and yellows for skin tones and whatnot. It gives it a certain aesthetic, or going completely the other way and giving us almost like washed out, uncolored faces. It's fascinating. The fact that Walter, he always has these glasses on where the lenses of the glasses are flat, so they don't reflect anything. Uh, like all of the artistic choices that the artistic team's making are really feeding into the mysterious narrative that Tynan is creating. So, like visually, this is one of the most interesting books on the stands. Um, in terms of what Walter's going through as this, and we don't know 100%. Is he an alien? I mean, that we're making that assumption. Tynan's never come out and said that. Is he some sort of mythological being, magical being? Like we just don't know. But the questions that have been raised are really interesting, and they're not questions that have easy answers, regardless of where the story is going to end up. I mean, the first half of the story, when it was established, was that cliffhanger ending at the very first issue where the world comes to an end. They see it on their TV. The world outside this bubble where they exist, this nice house on the lake, is it's apocalypse. It's Armageddon. People are being burned alive. Cities are melting. They know the end of the world comes, and they're stuck there. And so they're a little more. They're not so focused on trying to get out and trying to escape because they believe that the world has ended. Not that they don't want to know and that they're not curious. If any loved ones have survived, but ultimately they're not happy. Especially when Walter reveals, "Yes, I saved you all. Yes, the world ended." And that's why he chooses to mind wipe them, and we get that restart after 6 issues because they weren't able to be satisfied knowing that the world ended and they were saved. Walter thought by revealing that the world had ended and they were saved that they would be happy and grateful and just be willing to live, like a bug under glass, I suppose you could say, or like ants on an ant farm. So this time he chooses to restart it. It's never clear why he chooses to bring Reg, who was separated previously the first time, why he brings Reg out and puts Nora in the isolation chamber or whatever you want to call it. She's the only one that remembers. Everybody else has had their mind wiped. But now their focus is on, hey, we want to escape. We want to find out what's going on. We want to figure out a way to get out of here. And Walter's trying to distract him, as you said, with the ideas of, hey, let's find a way to make this livable. We could be here for a long time, blah, blah, blah. Let's distract ourselves with a farm or whatever it is. And he has Nora to go and talk to. It seems like maybe that's why he keeps one friend sort of aware of what's going on. So he has like a sounding board. But she's not about to play that role for him. She's like, F you, dude. Like, if you think that these people are not going to want to escape, not realizing that the world outside no longer exists, then you're fooling yourself. So it's not like Walter's this all-powerful, all-knowing being, right? He's got his own hang-ups and weaknesses and foibles as well. And I think that aspect of it is interesting because it's almost like for all his time on Earth, decades, we're told, he really doesn't seem to have a great understanding of human nature. It's like he understands it on a superficial level, like in terms of his relationship to these people, but he doesn't understand what it truly means to be human and what drives us as a species. And so I find that aspect of the story fascinating as well. So, um, yeah, I mean, as much as I want to know how this story ends, I wouldn't mind if it was more than 12 issues because I mean, this could go on for years. in terms of, yeah, I don't know that I'd want the mystery stretched out that far, but we could have issues that just focus with such a diverse cast and such a big cast. We could have issues that just focus on any number of interpersonal relationships between, just two of the characters, and we're not getting a whole lot of that. I wish we got a little bit more of it, but I understand that the overall narrative has to take precedence. But if you were to spread it out over more issues, you might be able to explore more of that. So yeah, super underrated. Not enough people talking about it. Fantastic book.
Yeah.
Okay, I yeah, last book we're going to talk about in detail is Catwoman Lonely City #3. This is a Black Label book. It's written, drawn, colored, and lettered. He's doing it all, folks, by Cliff Chang. And as I said, this is issue #3. It's Black Label. It's oversized. And it's the story of basically Catwoman trying to pull off one last heist. When Batman sort of died in her arms on what was dubbed Fool's Night, where all these Gotham citizens either, it wasn't never clear if it was like mass psychosis or mass hypnosis or just mass lunacy instigated by the Joker. These citizens kind of rose up in revolt, and it was sort of anarchy in the streets of Gotham. And Batman and his allies brought order back, but Batman himself ended up dying in an explosion, or was injured and died in Catwoman's arms. And the last words out of his mouth were Orpheus, and she thinks it has something to do with something that's hidden in the Batcave. And so Catwoman was captured that night. She spent any number of years in prison. Now she's out. She's pulling one last heist to get into the Batcave, which is heavily guarded by the Gotham City Police Department, to find out what Bruce meant by that, what's his legacy, what's left down there in the Batcave. When I say it's the Batcave's guarded by the Gotham City Police Department, this isn't your typical Gotham City Police Department. It's much more in line with what we saw in Future State or in Fear State, where it's much more fascist and militaristic. Harvey Dent is the mayor of Gotham City. He's much more militaristic, and there's curfews and military grade weapons that the police carry around. He's outlawed vigilantism, much like we've seen in a lot of other books. Definitely seems to be a theme these days. I think that has a lot to do with what's going on in the world right now. But in a way, Gotham City is much safer, but it's that same old trade-off that we see in society, even in this country after 9/11. When you're safer, when you put in more safeguards, you give up a measure of your freedom. You can't have both. Those things are diametrically opposed, right? Like true freedom would lead to anarchy because there would be no laws. Everybody would be free to do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, to whomever they wanted without consequence. That's anarchy. You can't have that. You have to have rules to have a structured society. But if you have too many rules, then you're really starting to infringe upon people's personal freedom. So it's that constant push and pull, which they'll, as long as humans exist, and we're not living in a utopia where there are unlimited resources and everything is handed to us and nobody has to work, or everything is just hunky dory. Unless you live in a society like that, you're going to have that push and pull between freedom and security, and that's really at the heart of the story that Cliff Chang's telling. Now he's dressing that up in some really interesting ideas with this thought of Catwoman being an older version of herself. Can she still do this? What is she really willing to risk? Who is she willing to risk to get what she wants? That sense of guilt that she has. I mean, this isn't the reckless, hey, I'm going to live forever Selena Kyle that you may have been introduced to in the past. She's filled with self-doubt. She's filled with this sense of mortality. She senses that she doesn't have much time left, and for that reason, she makes the choices that she makes. So this is a fantastic, fantastic story. Far and away the most interesting, favorite thing that I've ever read from Cliff Chang. And not to say that Cliff hasn't done other good things in the past. His New 52 Wonder Woman with Brian Azzarello, Paper Girls with Brian K. Vaughan are both excellent, but this is a class all on its own. And the fact that he's taking all of it on, I love it. My only complaint is because he's taking it all on himself. We got a little bit of a delay between issue 2 and issue 3. And at the end of this issue 3, we're told we're not getting issue 4 until August. August. And like I get it, DC. Like he's got the first few issues done. You're paying him to do it. You want to get some return on that investment. But that's another mistake from DC editorial or who's ever making the decisions over there to not say, we're not releasing this until it can come out on a monthly schedule. And if that means we have to wait and have to pay Cliff until it's completed, then that's what we'll do. Like, this is coming out in April. That means you have no issue for May, June, or July. There are a number of readers that are going to forget about this. They're going to have forgotten about this, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it have a significant drop in sales when August rolls around, which is a real shame. You're doing a disservice to the work, and you're doing a disservice to the series, and you're hurting your own pocketbook at the end of the day. It's having the opposite effect. Like, oh, we want to get these issues out and release them because we need to get some return on our investment. Then you got to be patient and give the series its best chance to succeed instead of shooting yourself in the foot, because I guarantee you're going to see a drop off in sales having to wait for 3 months. So I just, when I saw that, I was really, really disappointed. So anyway, what are your thoughts on the series?
Well, this is a very interesting older Selena Kyle. We there's some, you know, this is a Selena Kyle that's been put through the ringer. Uh, Cliff Chang does a really good job showing just giving us snapshots of the 10 years that Selena spent in prison, and she was lonely. Through the snapshots we learned that she had a cellmate. She befriended someone. She taught someone how to defend herself, a cellmate how to defend herself, and ultimately that cellmate was killed. And then Selena, after that, didn't she kept to herself. She basically became a loner and her sort of a recluse in prison. She never had a lot of friends in prison because of that experience. And so when she's out, she's kind of lost, and she has to regain those friendships again. And for the last, this is the third issue for all these issues, it has been Selena trying to find herself again, trying to find her friends, and trying to build up, you know, to get some semblance of some sense of family. And she actually does a reasonably good job here. I mean, she even gets very close to the Riddler. Uh, and in fact, they even get intimate in this issue, and she actually trains the Riddler's daughter, Edie Nigma. She gets reestablishes connections to Pamela Isley, and uh, it's she creates her new family again. And this is a Gotham City where there's a mayoral election, but and Barbara Gordon and Harvey Dent are are the candidates for election. Harvey Dent is struggling with his dual identity, as he always has, and Selena, for whatever reason, and it's not clear to me, but I'm fascinated by it. There's something in the Batcave. There's some secret in the Batcave that's connected to Project Orpheus. Orpheus, as you indicated, Jace, was Batman's last words to Selena. You know, so whatever this Orpheus is, or Project Orpheus, it's perhaps connected to the Batcave, and it's connected to something that will possibly save Gotham from some kind of something event. I don't know, but it's really curious, interesting. I love my a scene that I actually thought was poignant here was the death of Killer Croc. How the manner in which he went out. They actually at one point, in order for this is like, to me, this is like a Catwoman's version of Ocean's 11. She's put together this crazy eclectic team of Killer Croc, Poison Ivy, Riddler's daughter, and all these other side characters, and the job is ultimately to break into the Batcave. So it sounds kind of cool, and you think, my God, and how do you break into a Batcave? Because Bruce Wayne was, you know, arguably the second most intelligent person on the planet. If you know, no one's breaking into the Batcave if he doesn't want to, and he's dead. There's a secret in the Batcave. You got to break into it. In order to do that, they need to steal a portion of the Clayface. They need some of the body tissue of Clayface, because if you utilize the body tissue right, you can create a perfect mask, because they want to impersonate a commissioner in this story. And then at one point, they even break into a museum to steal the helmet of Naboo, of Dr. Fate, because they need to call forth the demon Etrigan, because when they lose Killer Croc as a teammate, they need to replace him with somebody equally as powerful and strong. And so Selena Kyle is experiencing all these losses, and she's already lost Batman. She spends 10 years in prison. She gets out. She's trying to reestablishing these old connections, but everyone's older. Everyone's different. No one's as good or as great as they used to be. Uh, and surprisingly enough, what I thought was worked surprisingly well. Who would have thought that Edward Nygma would be the voice of reason in this issue, where he's actually a pillar of strength for Selina, and he seems to be sincere about it. I don't think this is something that Cliff Chang is setting up uh, Edward Nygma to be someone who's going to betray Selina. He genuinely seems to care for her. His daughter Edie Nygma is a very strong supporting character who's being trained by Selina, and Selina refuses to acknowledge the fact that she is in fact a mentor to young Edie. So Selina is really coming into her own right. She really is. Selina is almost like Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond, but she just hasn't accepted it yet. And there's even one scene with Leslie Nielsen where Leslie Nielsen, an older Leslie Nielsen, reminiscence about Alfred dying after recovering from cancer.
Leslie
And then, what's that?
Leslie Tompkins.
Tompkins. Sorry, I said Nielsen.
Leslie
Sorry.
Nielsen's the guy from Police Squad,
Thank you.
which would be a totally different comic, which I would still read.
That's awesome. My apologies to Police Squad fans everywhere. But my all-time favorite show. But anyways, yes, thank you. Leslie Tompkins reminisces about the death of Alfred while she's injecting Selina with cortisone shots, like 4 of them in a span of 2 months because her knees are shot. You really get a sense that these characters are really on their last big heist, and they need to pull this off, and they need to break into the Batcave. And I can't wait. I think that this is only 4 issues, right? We have one final issue left.
Yeah, again, that
Yeah.
just goes back to what I was saying about why we have to wait 3 months.
Yeah,
You
but no,
know, it's
I'm looking forward to it though. It's the art works well for me. I love great character work. All these preconceptions I have about these characters, you know, this is Cliff Chang has pulled me into his world here, and I'm buying into it. Like I mean, who would have thought I would accept? He actually has me believing that Selina Kyle would sleep with Edward Nygma. I mean, good grief, how did he pull that off? And yet it works, strangely enough. But no,
yeah,
this is a good series.
I love the more realistic body style for an older Poison Ivy too. Like it just
Yeah.
works. Like yeah,
Yeah.
it's just fantastic job.
Yeah,
So
she's got a lot of junk in that trunk.
yeah, she does. Anyway, that does it for the regular issues that we're going to cover in this episode, everybody. We do have one more book, Trial of the Amazons, Wonder Girl #2. That'll be in a separate spotlight episode for Trial of the Amazons, as we've done throughout that event. So don't forget to go and check out that episode. I will also mention, in addition to these books that we talked about, there's a couple of trades coming out. Well, one trade and one hardcover. We have the Infinite Frontier hardcover hitting shops this week, as well as the Deceased Dead Planet trade paperback. That's the Tom Taylor, Trevor Hairsine illustrated book about an alternate DC with the anti-life equation having taken over and all that sort of stuff. So go check those out if you're so inclined. Any other episodes you have coming out this week you want to let people know about, Rocky?
Not really. Well, we're gonna review Trial of the Amazon separately, but beyond that, no, I'm too busy at work, and I'll be joining Trevor Lankiewicz, Dark Knight Nation. We'll be hitting the Calgary Expo Comic Con this coming weekend, and to promote his Area 51 Helix project, and to visit some family and have a good time with other comic creators and comic lovers, and should be a good time in Calgary, Alberta.
Yeah, jealous. I wish I could join you guys there. I've had a few people reach out asking me about the Spawn Daily. Yeah, I know it's been over a week since we've released an episode. It all goes back to the day job. I've been having to do a lot of traveling for that lately. Some of it unexpected with like barely 3 hours notice. So we will be getting back to that really, really soon. And hopefully we'll get a bunch of episodes in the can recorded. So we'll be able to release even with all the traveling I'm going to be doing coming up really, really soon. So that being said, there are a lot of creator-owned episodes, creator-owned spotlights that I'm putting out right now for different campaigns on Zoop and whatnot. And I'll also have an interview coming up later this week with Jed McKay, Marvel writer who's been doing a lot of great stuff over there. So look for that as well. And don't forget about our spoiler-free New Comic Book Wednesday that comes out every Wednesday. So with all that being said, thanks for joining us, everybody. Don't forget to go check out the Trial of the Amazon Spotlight if you want our thoughts on that book. And with that being said, we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.